Okay, now. Welcome everybody, this is Jason, and this week's workshop is a beginner's guide to SimPE Part 3. This one is about body shop resources. In the last 2 weeks we looked at basically how SimPE is put together, and last week we looked a little bit about object resources. So this is the final workshop in the series. It's focusing on body shop. So let's have a look. Much like with objects, one of the major components of outfits is the GMDC. This is essentially the mesh. So if you did like paper mache in elementary school, we start with a wire frame and we stretch over newspaper or basically just wet paper to form sort of a 3D model. This is kind of the same concept. The mesh is the 3D armature that we're stretching a texture over. The GMDC plugin is a little bit unique. In the main subtab, the geometric data container, there are import, export, and preview buttons. This is on the lower left portion. And then in the middle, you have a 3D viewport where you can actually see your mesh. And then on the right, you have, if it's an articulated mesh, if it has joints, you can see the joint hierarchy on the lower right. What makes body shop meshes distinct from other object meshes is the animation skeleton and the method that you use to replace them. The animation skeleton determines which vertices are assigned to which points in the armature. It can be as simple as gluing a hammer mesh into a Sim's right hand, or as complex as manually assigning individual vertices into a dress mesh. Each vertex has a weight, and that can be assigned entirely to one joint or split between as many as 3 joints to create smoother animations. To replace a jointed GMDC, you would first need to export the mesh into Milkshape and Blender as a 5GD. Then in SimPE, to replace the GMDC in the resource tree, you right-click and then you select Replace from the dropdown. So it's a little bit different from static objects where you just import the object. Another key difference between build objects and body shop files is that the body shop resources are split into mesh and recolor components. What that means, one package will have the entire mesh file. That is basically the crest, the shape, the GMND, and the GMDC. And then the other one will have all of the other components, the 3IDR, the XMOL or GZPS, and then the texture and the TXMT. And that brings us to TXTR. The TXTR or texture image is a 2D image that gets applied over your mesh. The TXTR's plugin is fairly straightforward. The left third, it holds the TXTR's file name, the DXT format, and the levels of detail. The right 2/3 holds the actual image and it has integration with DDS utilities. The TXTR is at the bottom tier of the scene graph hierarchy, and it communicates, it only talks to the TXMT. The TXTR is one of the primary resources that new creators edit, so you should be familiar with it. The TXTR functions virtually the same in Body Shop as it does in Build By mode. The only real difference is that it's bundled in the recolor package. The TXMT. The TXMT is each group or subset's material. Basically what a material is, it tells the texture. The texture is what is applied over the mesh. The TXMT is how it is applied over the mesh. It tells it be shiny, be backlit, or be opaque. The TXMT has a plugin that looks similar to the GMND or the crest. The default tab is content and the default subtab is properties. Then if you look at the C material definition tab, it lists what type of material it is. So it can be Sim skin, it can be standard material, or it can be Sim standard material. The file list subtab in the TXMT, this references the texture, and it also references any environment cubes that are used. either the Maxis default ones or your own custom ones. The final part is the Categorize Properties tab. It essentially lists everything that's in the Properties tab, but it has a different interface for it. It shows all of the different coefficients as RGB values, like the environment cube coefficient, specularity, the diffuse, all of those. Within the scene graph hierarchy, the TXMT, it is above the TXTR but below the shape. So it communicates between the texture and the SHPE. While the TXMT isn't strictly necessary for new creators to know, it's helpful if you want to change the properties of the material as opposed to the texture. And then for body shop resources, we have the 3IDR. This does for body shop files what the SHPE does for object files, even though you do need the SHPE as part of the mesh package. It decides what material should be applied to which part of the mesh. And the 3IDR's plugin looks kind of like this. It has all of these type, group, and instance value for the shape and for the crest that are in the mesh file. If you're building meshes specifically, then it's good to familiarize yourself with the 3IDR or skin overlays or accessories probably, but as a beginning creator, you probably don't need to know it. Then the BINX or binary index. This is an XML type resource, so it looks a lot like the plugin for the MMAT or the plugin for the XMOL or the GZPS. It's kind of like that, but what's interesting about the BINX is that it has this sort index value, and that tells you where within the catalog you would find this object, where it's sorted in the Create a Sim catalog. The GZPS or XMOL, this is another XML type resource, so it's basically just editing text. But the XMOL or the GZPS has a lot of cool features. You can edit the age that an outfit can be worn in, the gender that can wear it. You can edit flags. So is it only available to townies? Is it visible in CAS? Product. This value controls what custom icon, such as University, Nightlife, H&M, is applied to the top right corner of the thumbnail in Body Shop and CAS. In conjunction with the family value, it can be used to BSOC, that is, recategorize your clothes with your own custom icons. Age, this sets the life stage for an outfit or an accessory. Gender, this is the gender for an outfit or accessory. Flags, determines whether or not an outfit is visible in Body Shop and whether or not it can be used by townies. Genetic, not really used in GZPS, but if it's an XSTN, which is the skin XML resource or XTool, that's iSkin overlay resource, it can be edited to set how inheritable the skin tone or eye color is. Bin, it helps in an XMOL because if you make custom accessories, you set a bin value, for example, for the head. If one accessory is already binned for the head, then another accessory with that same bin value can't be worn at the same time. If I have a horned helmet that has a bin value of, say, 54, that's already on the sim, and I try to add a non-horned helmet with the same bin value, I wouldn't be able to have both on the sim at the same time. It would be one or the other. Category. This controls which category the outfit accessory appears in. That's casual, formal, outerwear, swimwear, etc. And finally, the num overrides value can be edited to set the number of groups in a recolor. Let's look at the nuts and bolts. So if we open one of these meshes that I've been working on, this is my latest project, by the way. I've been just puttering around with it for a couple of hours. Let's have a look at this scene graph for this. And of course I didn't previously load it, so let's take a few
Oh
minutes for
no.
the file table. So this is what the scene graph for the mesh looks like. So the top tier resource is the crest. The crest talks to the shape talks to the GMND, and the GMND talks to the GMDC. The shape is also looking for a Maxis material called AF body leather jacket underscore black. If we have a look at the GMDC, just as with objects, there are three parts to this. You've got, on the left, you've got the groups, and then in the middle, you've got the viewport. You can see what the mesh actually looks like. And then over here, because this is a jointed object, we have a joint hierarchy. So we double click, for example, on left calf. Those are all the vertices that are assigned to left calf. We can import or export, but if it's jointed, if we do it this way, it's not going to respect the animations. So if we were to replace this, we would go select the resource in the resource list, and then right click and then replace in the drop down. Really, the only part of the mesh that you modify is the GMDC. If we have a look at one of the recolors. So the recolor scene graph looks like this. Okay, so it's got two TXMTs and two TXTRs, but they're just floating. Why is this? Because there isn't a shape to link the TXMT to. So where does the TXMT know what it's linked to? Right here in the 3IDR. We'll look at the 3IDR, and if you select shape, these are the TGI values of the actual mesh that it links to. So this is for body shop recolors. This is where they see the mesh that they're linked to. If you look at the BINX, you see that the icon index is 4. Okay, so where does it get its icon for CAS? So we go, so if we assume that 0 is the first line, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line, UI data. The other important property within the BINX is sort index. This tells us what position it appears in the CAS catalog. And then you'll see that we have a different material definition for each of these two components, for boots and body, because it has two different textures. So within the TXMT, in the properties tab, we've got alpha blend mode information. We can see that for boots, it alpha blend mode is none, but alpha test enabled is 1. So it does accept alpha textures. So I could essentially, with body shop open, if I'm working on a project, I could black something out on the alpha and it would appear as invisible. And then we have the actual texture name, how the texture is applied, and then if we go over here to material definition, boots, we see that this is a sim standard material, whereas bottom is sim skin. So bottom is actually applied over the sim skin. Sim skin would be like, as an example, an underwear mesh. It doesn't have any like boots or anything protruding from the mesh. It's just a smooth body. That would be ideal for a sim skin material. Now if we look over here, we've got file list, which is, there isn't an environment cube here, so all we're referencing is the base texture. And then if we look at categorized properties, Yeah, it looks pretty much like an object material. We've got diffuse, emissive, and specularity coefficients and the environment cube coefficient. These are RBG values, so I could ideally I could just like I could go 50, 255, 0 and completely change it. Now it's green. I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to commit it. And then we have the GZPS, and this does a lot of cool things. So we've got age. We can see that this is 4, so it's for a teenager. It's for female because gender 1. And then we have flags, so it's visible in CAS, and I'm not sure what exactly 28 is, but we know that it's visible in CAS.
The 20 is something with I think it is what outfits are used. It's cloned for something that was used for an earlier
Oh, it's just
display version of Body Shop.
okay. So it's
Uh,
just like a legacy flag. Then it's cloned
yeah,
from something that was
and I
cloned from
think
something else.
it might also be like those outfits are the ones that are eligible to be, well, they have to be able to randomly generate on a sim then as well. But when you create a new project, sometimes your sim will just have like a random outfit on them, and I think that number has something to do with it as well.
Oh, well, I will research that. That's yeah. That's I honestly until I go back and I'm looking into the components because because of the presentation, I don't really think about it. It just okay. I cloned this in Body Shop. It works. Moving on to the next outfit. But
It's because
interesting.
you see in the name it starts with like the CISIE. Anything cloned from a CISIE outfit will have the 20 in front of the last number in flags.
Okay. But it's a hex value, yes. So 8 is going to well, but no, that doesn't make sense because if it's 8, it
Well,
wouldn't
like
be visible in.
the two, the the seventh number will be a two. The eight does stuff, but the two doesn't really do anything because it's in the seventh place.
Okay, so it's only looking
But
at whatever is in the eighth position
in
there.
the last spot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The creator, not a huge deal
Except
unless
for
you.
that one weird body shop instance where they sometimes show up. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, and then the creator, probably not very interesting if you're a bidding creator, but this is vital. For example, if you create with body shapes and you need to make a custom BSOC icon. And other than that, and then these are the actual groups. For example, num overrides. This is the number of groups that are included in the actual file. So we can see here 2. That means that there should be 3. So then, but there are actually only 2 components, boots and bottom. Why is that? Most likely because this was created from something that had 3 groups and then one was erased.
It
No?
only supports two groups.
Oh. So it's okay, so
For some reason, this doesn't start counting as zero. For like all
that's
the other numbers start at zero. This one doesn't.
that's
I don't know
odd.
why.
Yeah, yeah, everything else 0 is like the first line or the first property.
Yeah.
But for that's strange. I did not know that. It's because again, I don't like I use what already exists. I wouldn't add a group unless I actually needed to. So I don't do it as frequently. But then text list, this is what actually appears in CAS. This is a tooltip for an outfit. But if it's BSOCed, if you use BSOC at all and I do because this is for a teen athletic girl, then if you've edited the family and property values, then you wouldn't see a tooltip in Body Shop. And here we have the actual textures. The TXTR, if you want to replace that, you can import or build DXT as you normally would. It's basically no different from the plugin for an object. And then here is the part that goes against the skin. And that's pretty much it.